Hello, ladies and gentlemen. So today I'm doing a review on a book called by an Italian author, journalist, commentator. His name is Antonio Socci. And this is the book we will be reviewing. I will be reviewing. Um, and it is called The Secret of Benedict the 16th. Is he still Pope? That is the question Antonio Socci is asking. Antonio Socci had a previous book several years ago called It's Not Francis. And in it, I have not read the book. It's only in Italian, unfortunately. And I hope the publishers of this book will publish his Non e Francisco. It's Not Francis, which in it, he disputed the validity of the election of Pope Francis based on the breaking of some of the violation of some of, I think, one or two of the main requirements in the voting procedures for the conclave, as was specified in the in the rules of the election of a pope by Pope John Paul II. Um, I looked into it, many years ago, so I don't really recall the exact violations at the moment. But he stated, I think there was sometimes something to the effect of they were entitled only the Cardinals to vote 4 times in a day, and they voted 5 instead of 4. Or was it 3 and they voted 4? I don't recall exactly. But basically, there was a violation of the rules of the conclave. And according to this document, the violation of these strict rules would invalidate the election. So that was his It's Not Francis. That's the book he wrote previously, which I hope they publish it in English, so one has it'll be kind of a volume 1, volume 2, basically. This is called The Secret of Benedict the 16th. Is he still Pope? Now, I read the whole thing. It's very good. It's actually quite good. He has his admiration for Benedict the 16th. I admired him greatly, but he considered him one of the best popes, and actually the whole Catholic informed Catholics when Benedict was elected, when Cardinal Joseph Ratzinger was elected, they were ecstatic. But unfortunately, we were ecstatic because he was the doctrinal chief. He was the right-hand man of Pope John Paul II to keep an eye on doctrine, on errors and movements and all that stuff. And his enemies and the enemies of God would call him the German Rottweiler, or what is it they called the German Rottweiler, or the German. I don't remember what they. I wish he was a German Rottweiler. I wish he was a German Shepherd who would would have been a strong leader. He's an excellent theologian, but he is a person kind of weak. Unlike Jorge Bergoglio, aka Pope Francis, who basically decides what he wants and he gets it done. So anyways, let's get into this book. So Antonio Socci, as I told you, you can grab it from Amazon in the US.com, .ca, I'm pretty sure in England, UK. Worth the purchase. He goes into 3 or 4 different sections. So divisions. And I might actually put on my cheapo glasses because I'm going, well, I need glasses. Anyways, part 1. So he has part 1, the mystical, economic, and political origins of the drama. So he ended that part has a lot of stuff about the history of the papacy and being, defended by different governments and emperors during the past, and what happened during the Clinton-Obama years, and even Joe Biden, and the agitation with Russia, and how the U.S. actually infiltrated was instrumental in founding the Ukrainian Orthodox Church, the Autocephalous. So there was a split in the Ukrainian Orthodox Church between those adhering to the Russian Orthodox Church and those who split to make it a nationalist Ukrainian church, and how the U.S. government actually precipitated and assisted in that endeavor. So he has a lot of really kind of interesting things. Let me put on my glasses here. I don't like wearing glasses, but just for show here, we can see what it says here. And he as well mentions the fact that there was the money, the Vatican money, their banking system was shut down. And as soon as Benedict resigned, boom, it started up again. Yeah. So anyway, and of course he talks about the St. Gallen Mafia, which is not a mafia. Well, it could be considered a mafia. They were different cardinals conspiring amongst themselves to choose a pope, a man who was going to be the liberal modernist wing of the church. So he does mention, he talks about a bit about the St. Gallen Mafia, and about how even the retired non-voting Cardinal McCormick in England, how he, even member of the St. Gallen Mafia, he was given access to the British embassy in Rome. So even the British government is almost conspiring with these prelates in their meetings to see who they will choose as pope, or in their collusion in their attempt over choosing the pope they desire. So the name of Cardinal Cormac Murphy O'Connor. There's lots of good, points in it. I mean, actually, there's a good quote from the Eastern Orthodox Church, the Russian Orthodox Church, by the Metropolitan. Let me just put my glasses on here. The Metropolitan, I think Hilarion. The Russian Orthodox Church actually published the works of Pope Benedict XVI, his complete works in Russia, because they consider him quite a good theologian. So Metropolitan Hilarion, he says here. So these words are from the Metropolitan here. The critical perspective of one of the greatest Catholic theologians of the modern age, meaning Benedict, that's what they mean, on the theme of the sad rupture with tradition that took place in the period following the Second Vatican Council, and the difficulties which the path of aggiornamento is fraught. And he says as well, that was the preface of the book of Pope Emeritus to the volume published by Orthodox Patriarchate of Moscow is also very explicit. Here we read, among other things, that's what it says in the introduction to the works of Benedict, the most profound cause of the crisis which has disrupted the church lies in the obscuring of the priority of God in the liturgy. So anyways, part one is basically deals with a lot of the political machinations which attempted, so the political world joining forces with the modernist clerics which are attempting to change the church. St. Gallen group, even Archbishop Gonswine in his 2016 talk, again, it's referenced here. He talks about the St. Gallen group, and which backed Bergoglio, Jorge, in 2005 against Ratzinger. But Ratzinger, because it was the St. Gallen group versus the Salt of the Earth. They're two different groups. Anyways, Salt of the Earth supported Benedict, Ratzinger, and then the St. Gallen group apparently had the last laugh in 2013. Yeah, I was otherwise I'm going to be ruining the book for you. So I'm not going to go too much into it, because I really do want you to purchase the book. So anyways, first part one, is more of the politics, intrigues, banking, St. Gallen Mafia. So all of that. And it has different sections. So it says, like, section was like the church and empire as during the Arian crisis. Let's see if they divide it up here. The second part is who wanted a revolution in the church and why. Now, part two, it is that which is not understood. Benedict is Pope forever. Now, in this part, again, it is divided into several chapters. So it's Benedict Pope forever, the non-resignation of the papacy, and the true power of the Papa in between quotes emeritus, Pope emeritus, which, by the way, is a fiction which doesn't exist. And then there's part three, which we'll get to in a second. Part three is basically about Fatima. Well, we'll get to it. So part two, now I have to say, part two, reading this whole, which is most of the book, which is a good portion of the book, I'd say 65% of the book is part, the second section. Even, I'd say about, maybe even like 70. Most of the book is actually the second section. Now, reading it, I thought, wow, Antonio Socci, our Italian friend, Antonio Socci, must have watched my video, because I have a couple of videos on another channel, which I will upload to this channel. And I did them I didn't double check with the dates, but they were probably around December 2018, November 2018, January 2018. No, even before January. I'm guessing like November or something. I don't recall. So, and all the points I was mentioning, Antonio Socci was saying the same thing. But he does have a couple of unique things which I didn't notice or I didn't understand, like the pontificate of exception. Now, I know where the article he got it from, and I was looking at it, but I was doing Google Translate, and it's like, okay, you know what? I don't understand that part. I'm not commenting on it. So, but section 2. So, where are we? Section 2 here. On resignation of the papacy. Yeah. So so he asked, did Benedict XVI truly resign from the papacy on February 11th, 2005, returning to what he was beforehand, as did Celestine V? Or could his actions be considered as a retreat tactic in order to have a greater strength. And then another part says, thus, in the case of Benedict XVI, we must ask, did he truly resign from all, that's the key word, of the Petrine ministry? Is he no longer Pope? The answer to this question today, looking at the last 6 years, is clearly no. So this is his premise. And I said in his first book, It's Not Francis, he disputes the validity of the election because of the violation of the rules of the election and the conclave, which apparently nobody responded to him to. I think they said basically, oh, it doesn't really matter or something like that. But and it's not this insane Italian who only says it. Monsignor Nicola Bux, who worked for the Congregation for the Doctrine of Faith under Ratzinger, under Benedict XVI, and then he is still the consultor to the Congregation for the Causes of Saints under Francis. He, in an interview, which he did in October 13th, 2018 or 2017, because I did a little video on it, he himself, because there was lots of questions about the crisis in the church and what's happening and how can things be fixed, out of the blue, Nicola Bux says, well, you know what, let's ignore this heretical pope, and pope falls into heresy, and what happens, these are the procedures of deposing a pope and who can depose him, and it's complicated. Let us make it easy on ourselves and examine and see if the resignation of Benedict XVI was juridically valid or not. Meaning, was it valid in law or not? So, because was it full or partial? Because if it was a partial resignation, it is no resignation. So that was Nicola Bux. He's not mentioned in this book, which is, I'm surprised. Maybe Antonio Socci, hey, Nicola Bux is another Italian guy, he should know. But anyways, he didn't. But he does say that. And he goes through, I probably put a lot of pointers here when I was reading it, but he goes through the several canonists, canon lawyer, canon professors, especially the one I actually read analyzed most of his article on my previous video, which I'll put up anyways soon. In it, that canon lawyer basically says that Benedict resigned the functions of the ministry, of the papal ministry, but not the papal office itself. And that was the intention of Benedict as expressed in his words and actions. And it was actually a big, long, a huge article, actually. And it quotes Benedict himself saying, you know what, I took this responsibility in 2005, and it is always and forever. I will never give it up. I just give up the governance of the church. So as he said on another occasion, I gave the active exercise of the ministry instead of the actual. And actually, Archbishop Gonswein, again, he quotes him in this book, who did a lecture in 2016 talking about how Benedict almost created a new, changed or altered the Petrine ministry, the office of Peter, that there's now a contemplative member and an active member, and that actually Archbishop Gonswein himself in that interview, while he says there's only one pope, meaning Pope Francis, yet this Petrine ministry is expanded in the same, not interview, it was a promotion of a book by a a professor, I believe, and it's actually mentioned with Antonio Socci here mentions him. He actually says that Benedict did not abandon the office. Now, how can you say he left it? He didn't abandon the office, and he's not. But he doesn't say he's not Pope. He insists he is Pope, but he's a Pope emeritus somehow. A creation which doesn't exist. Which there's a canon lawyer, which I don't think Antonio Socci mentioned, because he said he actually talks, well, Bishop Emeritus, we can kind of figure it out, but you cannot be a Pope Emeritus, a bishop, because this is like you're still a bishop. It's a character. It's an ordination. You have become a bishop. You cannot not become a bishop anymore. But a Pope is an office. Yes, you can be not a Pope. A president can no longer be a president. But a bishop is a bishop. A priest is a priest. Even if he's not functioning as a priest, he's still a priest, a retired priest. But a bishop, a pope, this title of Pope Emeritus is not possible, according to that canonist, which I don't have his name in front of me right now. I'll probably do a video on it if I so feel like it. But overall, this is a really, really well-written book. But as I said, almost every reference he makes to the various canon lawyers, the various incidents, what Pope Benedict has said. Let me put my glasses on here. So, where is this? And actually, he talks about how the Bergoglians, he calls them, the people who are supporters of Pope Benedict, Pope Francis, are always seeking, what does he say here? Seeking recognition from the Pope Emeritus because they feel they have no authority. And I mean, he quotes Pope Benedict. There's a funny incident. He mentions it, and I think I did mention it in my video anyways, that after they told him, like, hey, Holy Father, why are you wearing white, and why do you still keep calling yourself Pope Emeritus, and why you're still addressed as Pope? He said, well, I'm wearing white because, I couldn't find any black cassocks in the Vatican. So, I had to continue wearing white. That's kind of a joke because, you're in the Vatican, you're in the center of Catholic Rome, Catholic world. You can get a black cassock sewn, custom tailored for you in one day if you wish. And then he told him, I think, as I recall, Benedict says, well, what do you want me to do? Return to being a cardinal in the Vatican, being a cardinal? Being a cardinal, people would say, and being in Rome and as a cardinal, people would say, but then he says, then I would be known as the ex-pope. Well, if you resign, here it is. Here's the actual quote. I'm just going off of memory because I just read it. In his final. In another passage, Benedict XVI expresses concern because had he returned to being a cardinal, in quotes now, in that cardinal would have been seen the ex-pope, thus creating confusion. And then Antonio Socci goes, but if he had done this, wouldn't he have been, in fact, an ex-pope? And you say, well, apparently Benedict did not want to be seen as an ex-pope, because for him, he accepted the ministry, the office of the bishop, of the office of Peter, the ministry, always and forever, using his own words in 2005. And then he talks about different Braunmüller and He very good cardinal who's friend of Ratzinger, and he criticized him. Anyways, Benedict writes him a letter, and he ends his letter with my apostolic blessing. And an apostolic blessing is only given by a pope, and he gives it to Brandmüller, his friend, apparently because Ratzinger apparently in his mind believes he can give up the functions of the papacy but still remain pope. Apparently this is how he thinks, which is of course impossible, because even the Code of Canon Law, you have to resign the office, and when you resign your office, you are no longer pope. You cannot be Pope Emeritus. No such thing. Let's see here. And then he gives different reasons about, but you do have to, I don't want to waste my time reading the whole book for you. I'd be ripping off Antonio Socci this way. But, and then he talks about the possibilities of why he did it. He talks about Benedict saying, I prayed to God and God guided me to do so. And I'm going to go up into the mountain and, basically go into a state of prayer. And then Antonio Socci says, maybe we should be thankful that Benedict is still there. He's holding the revolutionaries. Like he is, as long as he's alive, those who seek a revolution in the church are somehow held back. And that reminds us of actually 2 Thessalonians 2:6-8, where it says, and this is mentioned several times in this book, and it was mentioned actually by Cardinal Mueller in his Profession of Faith recently, 2019, and Cardinal Ike about the mystery of iniquity. And that's from 2 Thessalonians. And it's mentioned there's this says here, for the mystery of iniquity already worketh, only that he who now holdeth do hold until he be taken out of the way. And then that wicked one shall be revealed, whom the Lord Jesus shall kill with the spirit of his mouth. So apparently in this mystery of iniquity is being held back, is not being completely unleashed, because there's one who is holding it back. Who is this one? Apparently Antonio Socci seems to think it's Benedict. And that same reference to the mystery of iniquity is mentioned actually in the Catechism of the Catholic Church, and was mentioned by Cardinal Mueller, Cardinal Ike, and as well. And then, so yeah, we're already quite long, almost half an hour here. So, and actually, there's a little quote, because there's in it Benedict, he mentions an incident where Benedict wrote a preface to one of the best cardinals there is, Robert Serra. He's from Africa. I don't remember which country he's from. He's now head of the Congregation for the Divine Liturgy, Divine Worship and Sacraments, I believe. So, but unfortunately, he's been surrounded now by Jorge, removed all the good people from around him, and stacked the deck with people who are obedient to the revolution of Francis. So, but anyways, he wrote a book, and Pope Benedict wrote a preface for it, and saying how great it is that the liturgy is safe in the hands of Robert Serra. And the day, or a day after or something, Pope, and it was like reported in the news. So Antonio Socci is basically telling, like almost Benedict behind the scenes, it's kind of telling people, don't touch Robert Serra, leave him in his position. And Pope Francis in a homily, I guess pretty much after that, he says, he talks about pastors leaving the office and bishops leave, after setting up a church, going, and he says they have to go. When they go, they have to go. And he says here, do not leave only halfway. And it's almost like because the commentary he's talking about in St. Paul has nothing to do with leaving halfway or leaving all the way, but he says halfway, so a lot of people understood it as kind of talking about Pope Benedict. Now, if Jorge Francis thinks Benedict only left halfway, then he didn't leave at all. That's basically the whole story. In Benedict XVI, who relinquishes all power of governance while remaining Pope. What is this here? Well, what is the meaning of Bergoglio's criticism of the pastor who takes leave halfway? To whom is he referring? And then Antonio Socci answers, to Benedict XVI, who relinquished all power of governance while remaining Pope. I will end it. I will not continue with, there's a lot of references to Thessalonians and the Catechism and the canon lawyers. Actually, there was a section on, it's a point actually I didn't notice previously, about how Pope Benedict announced that his resignation will take effect, 17 days later or 15 days later, whatever, a certain amount of time after his announcement. And there is a canon lawyer. He shows that basically this invalidates the resignation, because it's not like saying about, I don't remember, the argument is about kind of almost a resignation must be when the Pope is chosen by the Cardinals and he says his yes, at that instant he becomes Pope, even before any ceremonies. He is Pope at that instant. So at the same time, when he says a no, he is no longer Pope. He cannot say, well, it's going to be no in 2 weeks. Anyways, you can go through the arguments in the book. And that was one thing. And then the other thing, which I didn't really pay too much attention to previously, was the state of exception, or the pontificate of exception, which is the words used by Archbishop Gonswein in his 2016 lecture about when he talked about the expanded Bitrine ministry and all that stuff. This comes from a German philosopher, and Antonio Socci talks about this pontificate of exception, and that means exception. From the German, it means outside of the law, like something exceptional, which is beyond the law, outside of the law, outside the law of the church. Then he has a section, the power of the powerless. I'm not going to go. Just get the book. So from reading it, he as well talks about before I finish up, Antonio Socci says a lot of good things. So pretty much everything is exactly what I've researched previously, except the first part on the political events, and then all the canonical stuff is really good. But it's just it's not no big deal. But because when Antonio Socci, when Pope Francis was first elected, he was a great enthusiast of Pope Francis. He loved him. And then he started noticing within a few months what's going on, what's happening, what are these defections from the faith? What are these teachings? Why is he persecuting good priests? Why? And then he started to wake up and came up to the conclusion of his original conclusion that Pope Francis was invalidly elected at the conclave, and now he has his second book. But anyways, he says here now, he says, so Antonio Socci is no traditionalist, no integrist. No, he actually here calls the great Pope Paul VI. Oh my God, Antonio, how dare you call Pope Paul VI a great Pope? This Paul VI destroyed the Roman Rite. He is the reason for pretty much the situation we're in today. Well, one of the main reasons, by changing the rites and ceremonies of every single sacrament of the church. And of course, the way you pray is the way you believe. So when you change the way you pray, you change the way you believe. You pray like a Protestant, you'll believe like a Protestant. And that is the defection from the faith which has happened since then. So he's definitely not great, Antonio. Maybe he's great in evil, but he's not great in good. But anyways, let's quote him here. The great Pope Paul VI, the Pope who brought the Second Vatican Council to completion, spoke seriously with his friend Jean Guiton in the 1970s. And here's what Pope Paul VI said. With a great disturbance at this moment in the world of the church. Oh, let me put my glasses on here. Let me not be proud. There is a great disturbance at this moment in the world of the church. And what is in question is faith. It happens now that I repeat to myself the obscure phrase of Jesus in the Gospel of St. Luke, when the Son of Man returns, shall he find faith on earth? At times, I reread the Gospel about the end times, and I note that at this moment, some signs of this end are emerging. Are we near the end? This we will never know. It is necessary to hold ourselves always ready, but everything may still last much longer. So even Pope Paul VI in the 1970s noticed the crisis of faith. And he was instrumental in exploding it through the liturgical deform, which he instituted. And then he has a quote here, I think one of the last chapter. There's the Fatima. He has I skipped it here. Anyways, he has about Fatima. As in Fatima, the prophecies of Fatima, there's a vision, the one released finally by the Vatican 2000, but they only released the vision because the words of the Virgin are not released. These words are still hidden. But in the vision the children saw a devastated city with, symbolic, either it could be symbolic of real death, or it could be symbolic of devastated souls dying in sin. And then they see a pope who's distressed and praying and in prayer and mourning and praying. And then they say, like as if through a mirror, they see this bishop dressed in white, and they say, he seems to be the Pope. So they're not 100% sure. They don't say the bishop dressed in white is Pope, but they see this bishop dressed in white. They say, seems to us to be the Pope. And then there's the Pope. So is it the same person they're talking about? Is the vision two different men? Pope Francis, Jorge, in Fatima, called himself the bishop dressed in white. So Antonio Socci says, so if Francis is the bishop dressed in white, is Pope Benedict the Pope kneeling and praying? From the vision of Fatima. And then the last chapter is about the prophecy of Malachi, St. Malachi. And there's actually lots of very interesting links here about the Petros Romanos, the last, or Petros Secundus. In some manuscripts, it says Peter the Roman. In some manuscripts, it says Peter the Second. And I'm going to leave it for you to read because it has some surprising things, some surprising facts. Even a painting painted by the Dominican or Benedictine who published the prophecy of Malachi. And this painting is placed in a Benedictine monastery, San Pietro in Bergoglio. San Pietro in Bergoglio. Peter in Bergoglio. And we have Bergoglio. Is he the Peter II? Anyways, yeah, it's and then again, here's an ironic thing from Antonio Socci. Well, Again, it shows you how bad things will be. For those who don't know, they just issued a working document on the Amazonian Synod, or the Synod in the Amazon. We're in June, right now, June 20th, 2019. So this Amazonian document just seems like neo-paganism. They want to change the Mass completely for the Amazonians, ordain women, neo-paganism, just the earth and the environment, and they will teach us, those who worship, nature will teach us how to be good Christians, I guess. But anyways, so here's a line. He says, basically, what's holding back some of these things, first of all, is Benedict's still alive, and what he thinks Francis is aiming at, quote from Antonio Socci, an ecumenical reform of the Mass, which, if activated in the terms that are feared, would provoke an extremely strong trauma in the Church, perhaps even to the point of schism. So apparently, Francis is looking even to reform the Mass even further. Well, that's the Amazonian thing. They'll start in the Amazon, getting them to do whatever the hell they want to do, and then spread throughout the Church, like they did with communion in the hand and other sacrileges. But the thing is, Antonio, what are you talking about? The an ecumenical reform of the Mass? The Mass, we already have an ecumenical reform of the Mass, a deform of the Mass. The Roman Rite has been altered. So the Mass has been ecumenicalized already with the Rite of Paul VI, the so-called ordinary form. It's not the Catholic Rite. It's not the Roman Catholic Rite. It is the ecumenical Rite. So, but they want to even change it even more. But again, the prophecies about St. Malachi are really interesting. Actually, apparently Benedict himself, they asked him, are you the last pope? Yeah, actually, maybe I should just end it with this. It is where this is Benedict, they ask him. Reform of the Mass. Oh, here we go. So, you are acquainted with the this is in Seawald. It's a biography he wrote with Pope Benedict, or an interview, and he's telling him, you are acquainted with the prophecy of Malachi, who in the Middle Ages foresaw the list of future popes, an end of time, or at least an end of the Church. According to the list, the papacy would end with your, Benedict, pontificate. Is that an issue for you, whether it can actually be that at least you are the last of a series of popes, or we have known for the office so far? The response, and Antonio Socci continues as this, response of Ratzinger leaves us unsettled. So what does Pope Benedict say? Everything is possible. So are you the last pope? Everything is possible. And this is immediate. And then he immediately adds, this prophecy probably arose in the circles of around Philip Neri. And then, of course, Pope Benedict jokes, well, maybe St. Malachi didn't have enough paper, so he didn't have time to write more popes after that. Okay, so I'm going to just read actually the Antonio Socci's one of his last paragraphs here. For the whole matter, we deduce, let me put my glasses on here. For this whole matter, we deduce the certainty that our time is truly a dramatic one, one of grand epochal changes, and, as has been said, apocalyptic. It is therefore only natural to scrutinize the prophecies, but above all, it is necessary to meditate on those things that are part of public revelation, which are referred to in paragraph 675 to 677 of the Catechism of the Catholic Church. And then his conclusion, which is actually very good. So what are we supposed to do? First, remain firm in the Catholic faith, drawing on the teachings of Benedict XVI, so forth. 2, united to Pope Benedict, pray entirely, also offering your own sufferings for the Church, especially for the chair of Peter. 3, give testimony to the truth with meekness and charity, but without accepting any lie, always ready to suffer for the truth according to the words of Jesus. Not being conformed to today's dominant theology, nor to their judgment or the events of the present and of history. 4, practice corporal and spiritual works of mercy. 5th, live the true life of the Church, the life of the sacraments, in sought-out fraternity with those who share the Catholic faith, illuminated by sacred Scripture. That's how he ends it. Actually, and then there's a quote of Saul. But I could have gone a lot longer talking about this book and the various canonists and priests and sources he does. But if I tell you everything, then why buy the book? I don't want to tell you everything. Get it, read it with an open mind. Again, nothing is 100%. Is Pope Benedict still Pope? He seems to think so. He refused to become a cardinal because he doesn't want to look like an ex-pope. And if he's still Pope, then there's no way we have two popes. Impossible. We can say, well, Francis is the Bishop of Rome, the vicar of the Pope, the deputy Pope, let's say, somebody who does the governance on behalf of the Pope. Who knows? These are the times we live in. Very good book. Nicely written. And actually has a lot of links. It's all on the internet anyways, the different articles and canonists he talks about. You can actually delve into the story even more if you so desire. So the secret of Benedict XVI, is he still Pope? I'm tending to think so myself. But let's see what happens with the Amazonian Synod. If it goes all to, well, let's say, what's the word? Goes all completely nuts. I think a lot of people are going to say, well, there's no way this is Catholic. Well, we'll wait and see. Happening, I think, in October. We'll have a look. Secret of Benedict, Antonio Socci. Buy it. Amazon.com.ca. You'll find it. Good book. Support him. He needs it. All right. Thank you. See you next time.